he had just opened a field school where people were like digging up bones. And so I got sent there basically. So I lived in Africa for in Lodwar, Kenya. Lived out in an army van for about 5 months. I think when you travel, your spectrum of experiences arm you with tools to handle stuff in the future. That's what my mom's biggest fear was. She was like, I was gonna marry this girl down there and never come back. But yeah, but I did. I came back and and then I came back to Columbia and I finished my degree, and the rest is history.
And we are recording. Wes Morton, thank you so much for stopping by today. I'm glad we were able to make time to do this. I know we've been talking about it for a couple of months.
Yeah, Victor, thanks for having me on Media People podcast.
And we hear that, rich Texan accent, but you're not in Texas today, are you? Where are we speaking to each other from?
No, you've got me from Venice, California, right by the beach.
Oh, geez. Okay, so are you going to be tuned into the World Series tonight? Because Venice isn't far from LA, is it?
No, Venice is a little beach town. If people aren't familiar, in LA, just south of Santa Monica. So I'll definitely be watching the Dodgers tonight, and hopefully they win the World Series when this comes out. But yeah, we're definitely going to watch some baseball with friends.
Well, this Torontonian hopes otherwise happens. Although I will say, even though I'm not a
Yeah,
yeah, I'll say this though. One thing I find interesting about both teams, I was looking at some of the historical stats, and apparently, if you look at the stats from like mid-May, neither one of those teams, the Dodgers nor the Blue Jays, were above 500. Let alone like they were kind of teetering close to it. So if you had to go back to May and say, "Oh, those guys are going to be in the World Series," you'd probably get laughed out of the room. So
should have put some money on it. Yeah.
God, yeah, there was. Do you watch English Premier League football? Not to digress, by any chance.
Yeah.
So, okay, Leicester City, the Tigers, was it about 10 years ago where they pulled off this massive upset? And there was one schmuck who apparently put something like, I don't know, like a couple £100 down for them to win the entire Premiership, and the odds were so against them that this guy completely cleaned up. But
Good for that Tigers fan. Yeah.
good for
You
that.
know you know what's funny? My co-founder Vivu Ban, who runs all our data science department, is actually in Toronto. Our
Really?
data science team is in Toronto. So we've got a friendly internal rivalry at Creative Company for the World Series.
Well, well, what happens? So you guys are both going to win and lose the World Series at the same time. So
Yes,
swap
exactly.
swap the flag in the car as you go to
Hmm.
celebrate. But okay, so bringing up Creative Company because you mentioned that you referred to him as your co-founder. So we know that you're the co-founder, but you're also the CEO of the company. So tell us a little bit about what Creative Company is and what your role there as co-founder and CEO entails.
Yeah, good question. I think CEO as a job is a very nebulous one, according to most people. Uh, and I think it's a job that has a lot of cachet socially, but is kind of the worst job on the planet at the same time.
Really,
Um,
you got to
yeah,
expand on that. You can't just make that bumper sticker comment and not follow up on that.
well, I think becoming an entrepreneur and running a company is like you're faced with a series of decisions every day that have no right answer. So what you're doing
Uh,
is you're making a series of calculated risks every single day and decisions where, maybe both decisions have equal merit or one's the right one, one's the wrong one. Sometimes the decisions are clear and easy. Sometimes they're very murky. So I think that's the tough part about running a company and entrepreneurship and being the executive that most people see is everyone's a critic and you're just doing your best to navigate a very dark room and feel your way to success.
Expand on Creative Company a little bit more because if I've got this right, you guys started in PR and production, but you've expanded, and you already alluded to it as well, into ad tech and large language modeling and things like that.
Yeah, so I started originally Well, I'll just take you all the way back. So I got laid off during COVID, like so many of the media and advertising industry, lots of industries, clearly. I mean, calamitous event worldwide, and found myself unemployed for the first time in many, many years. And I decided to start taking independent contracts because I had worked at William Morris, I had worked at Dentsu, I worked at Brenham Entertainment Network, and I really knew the kind of ins and out of the B2B marketing space for advertising and media. So I took independent contracts as a sole proprietor, which is basically an independent contractor. Uh, and we were called Wes Morton Creative Strategy. And then after I got too many contracts, we became Creative Strategies. And at that point, we were just a pure play B2B marketing and PR firm for other advertising brands. So we were working with agencies, we were working on behalf of Martech, MediaTek, basically doing their B2B marketing so they can meet brand advertisers. And we did that for about 2 years and we grew the business there. And then I met my co-founder through an executive recruiter, who was named Vibhu Ban. And we worked on a project together for a big gaming company where we did IP evaluations for them. The gaming company was already a client of mine, but they asked me if we could help them out evaluate different IPs for their next video game. And I was like, I think I just met a data scientist via this executive recruiter. So I worked with Vibhu on that project, and lo and behold, the client loved it. Vibhu was creating all these very cool large language models and AI models to apply to large bodies of text and organize data in really cool and interesting ways to do brand evaluations, consumer affinities, basically research products that we could then repackage, but actually use real consumer data out in the world to inform brands of better decisions. And after that project, I said, hey, man, you've got the tech. I know everyone in advertising and media. Maybe we should do something together. And yeah, 2 years later, we're Creative Company. So now we're data science and B2B marketing for media, entertainment, and advertising brands.
Well, let's go back to the beginning. We're gonna come back to this and bring it full circle, but you're technically from is it Brenham, Texas?
Yeah, between Brenham and Houston, Texas. So I grew up. I went to high school. The schools were better in Houston, so went to high school in Houston and Bel Air. But most of my kind of formative years were on this farm in Brenham, Texas, which is midway between Houston and Austin, in the middle of nowhere. I think they had a population of 20,000 people when I was growing up.
Is it not also the home to Bluebell ice cream?
It is Bluebell Ice Cream. That is the biggest employer in town.
Really?
Everyone
More so
works
than
at.
the civil service?
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. It's a big
Okay.
factory. It's the main factory, hometown Bluebell Ice Cream. For those that don't know it, we eat all we can, we sell the rest. Bluebell is the best in Texas. That's the slogan. And yeah, it's kind of funny that these small towns, they revolve around really big businesses. I remember one time there was a salmonella outbreak
No.
in the ice cream plant, and literally the whole town was like unemployed for months.
Jeez. It's not
Yeah, so
funny, but it does sound like a comedy movie.
I mean, it's like comedic because it's ice cream, but clearly un unfunny because people didn't get paid. But that just shows you how important these businesses are to these small towns.
Was your family employed by, Bluebell? Did you ever do a stint there?
No, I definitely ate a lot of Bluebell ice cream though. My family was self-employed, actually, a family of entrepreneurs.
And take us through what life was like growing up because, again, you mentioned you were doing school in Houston. So you're splitting your time between the big city and the small town.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it was a really interesting way to grow up. So much of what I see in America is this misunderstanding of the rural urban divide between people because typically rural communities are much more conservative and urban communities are much more liberal. But it was interesting to grow up in both because people think that that Texas, and while it goes conservative, the cities are actually more liberal. Like Houston had the first lesbian mayor in the United States, Anise Parker. And so they were really progressive in a lot of ways, energy capital. But then you go to Brenham, Texas, and there's no one for miles, and everyone's very conservative. So it was an interesting mix of people and seeing kind of both sides of America.
Growing up in Brenham and then going to school in Houston, was there a little bit of shock seeing the big city and actually going to school there as well? Because I'll be honest with you, I also, when we were doing our pre-production work, I did some Google Street View of Brenham. So I've got a very like high level Google idea of just how small the town is. But I also know that Houston is what, like one of like based on population is probably one of the top five, top six most populated cities in the US.
Yeah, I think they're number 4.
Okay, number four. There we
But
go.
someone should fact check me on that. I think Dallas is number 5. So Texas has, 2 of the top 5 biggest cities in the US. It wasn't urban shock for me because I was born in Houston, but my family bought the farm in Texas when I was very small, like, 8 or something like that. So I kind of was raised in both places. So it wasn't like I was like born in a little country town, brought to a big city. I was born in the city and then spent all the time out in the country. So it's kind of the opposite. And as a kid, I think I was incredibly bored just sitting on a farm sometimes because there's nothing to do. So you just got to go out. All you do is go outside and like run around the woods because there's like literally there's nothing around. Yeah.
So did your family buy the farm just for the space or were they farming the land as well too?
No, my dad actually owned an advertising agency, his own, a small agency boutique for oil and gas companies. So
Okay.
his clients were like Halliburton, Kawasaki Steel, um, and he had a fairly successful kind of solopreneur couple people with contractor for these big energy companies. And if anyone knows anything about Houston, it's an energy town. So it's like all the big energy companies are located in Houston. My mom was a former prima ballerina of the Washington, Chicago, and Houston Ballet.
Wow,
So
okay. So she was an
yes,
artist.
she was an artist. So she was a ballet dancer for 15, 20 years. And then when I ruined her ballet career because you can't have kids, and dance ballet. And but when after she had us, she wanted to pursue another career, so she actually became a landscape designer. So she was doing landscaping for houses around Houston and the Houston area. But we had the farm, and she would grow trees on the farm and then
Mm.
resell them for a landscaping business. So it wasn't like a cattle ranch. It was more like a tree farm with like Texas native trees and some houses. Yeah.
Interesting parallel between yourself and your father starting out in advertising because I know that you had a number of jobs before you started Creative Company, but if I've got it correctly, you started as a freelancer solopreneur and then just the contracts kept coming and they became so big that if you wanted to accept them, you had to bring people on to assist with them.
That's exactly how we built the business. Yeah, don't mention it too much because my dad will take credit.
Okay.
But no, it's funny how when I've talked to him about this, it's just kind of funny how we had an aptitude for communication. And I think that's what advertising is really about, right? It's how do you communicate a value very simply on behalf of a brand. And I think both my father and I are very clear, concise communicators. And we're both writers originally. So it's funny how it works.
And you're also a big reader too. I believe you mentioned earlier that big farm, rural, it was easy to get bored and you turned your attention to reading.
Yes. So that's what I did all the time because we didn't have a TV. We didn't have computer in the farm. As I could, if I got my hands on a video game, I would play a ton of video games, but my parents made a conscious decision of not having any screens at the farm. So all I had was running around with like dogs and chickens and ducks. Um, and I think we had 3 cats too. It's a lot of animals. Um, and reading. So I would just devour books. I mean, even in my little home office, I've got, I always have like 3 books on the bedside table. And I think just reading is so fundamental for forming critical thinking skills as a young person. Um, so, I was just searching for something to do, and all I had was books hanging around. So all sorts
Bef-
of things.
Before we get into your favorite authors, in hindsight, do you find not having those screens or having those distractions growing up has served you well as an adult? Like, can you look back and go, you know what? Maybe I might have been in a different place because my attention span might have been a little bit different, or it would have been harder for me to
Hmm.
focus had I had those distractions growing up. Because you clearly work with people that had access to TV, the internet, and the video games and
Yep.
whatnot when they were your age.
I'm of the generation that I was the generation that got introduced to cell phones. Like,
Uh, I'm with you
did
there.
you
Yeah.
did did you have like the bricks, and then you had the flip phones, and then you had yeah.
Yeah,
So
there was the remember we called it the Zach Morris phone. We never had one in our family, but it was the size of your forearm. Like it was
yeah, the
just
like the old Wall Street '80s phone. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, like I'd say in our family, we got our first cell phone because my mom won it on a radio contest and it came with like 1 year of service. And it's like, well, what do we do with this? And then the convenience of it, and we're going back to like, I want to say 98, 97,
Hmm.
and the convenience of it meant that you kind of had to renew that plan after that complimentary period was over and it just kind of stuck with you. Did you find it was the same thing with you?
I think I got a brick with like T9 word. That is a dig for some
Oh,
people. If
yeah.
people remember T9 word,
Yep.
in middle school, just to, contact my parents if, I was getting kidnapped by, a cartel or something.
Okay.
Um, but, but, uh, but you end up getting your friends, and then you're just like texting. Um,
Hmm.
and AOL was like a big thing. I remember chatting on AOL, but it was really this interesting time, I think, in the US where all this new communication technology was coming to the front. And we had access all to all that. But to answer your question, I think that a lot of, and this could be a conspiracy theory, so we'll debate it in the comments, but I think a lot of the current syndromes like ADHD and all of these things that we're just medicating people for is a symptom of screen time and just not being able to concentrate their attention on anything for too long. And I think one of the reasons I've been successful in my career is because I can focus really deeply on a task. And I think a lot of people get pulled, their attention gets pulled in a million directions through no fault of their own from people like us that are seeking their attention a lot of the times. But being able to actually concentrate on a single task and get it done, like from start to completion, I think is something that a lot of people struggle with. And I think being able to sit down and just like, read 200 pages in a book in a couple hours is something that's really hard to do these days.
No, I agree completely. But let's talk about some of your favorite authors. Okay, so we've got Kurt Vonnegut. So Slaughterhouse-Five right there. Was that your introduction to Kurt Vonnegut? Because that was my introduction to Kurt Vonnegut.
God, what was the first book I read? It might have been Five, but there's Cat's Cradle. There's so many good books. I think what's nice about Kurt Vonnegut is his language is so accessible. But the stories and, anecdotes are so meaningful and still, prescient, like even to this day. He talks about technology and relationships and, war. And yeah, I just find it fabulous. Also, his books are like always like sub 100 pages. So you can, the perfect beach read. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, I think Slaughterhouse-Five was about 150 or so. It
Hmm.
was a book I read in grade 11. So, and
Yeah.
then we've also got two other. they're both German authors, right? We got Hermann
Hmm.
Hesse, and then we've got Erich Remarque.
Yeah. So Eric Remmark wrote All Quiet on the Western Front. I've actually not read any of his other books if he wrote one, but that book was written after World War One, talking about the experience of being a soldier. And man, dude, I can't even talk about the book. It's so sad. But Netflix did this amazing rendition of it. If you can watch the movie, but you should read the book. It's actually one of the books that the Nazis burned.
Mm. Yeah, they
So,
weren't crazy about him. He spoke out against them quite a bit.
well, he was really anti-war and he participated in the war. And yeah, there's just it's so moving. It's amazing.
Let's talk about your first job.
Mm.
You were a waiter at Chili's.
Oh yeah. Oh, and just to say, Hermann Hesse. If people don't talk
Okay.
about uh, Hermann Hesse is for any young man who feels lost and alone. Go read Hermann Hesse. Steppenwolf, Siddhartha, Narcissus and Goldman. Amazing books. Yeah.
Okay, you can't leave us hanging there. Pick one of those books. And okay,
But
so
yeah.
if you were talking to, say, an employee of yours, or you were mentoring, you were a big brother somewhere, and you could tell they were a little bit lost, which one of those books would you give to him?
I guess maybe Narcissus and Goldman. It's the story of this kid who gets abandoned by his family, gets dropped off at a monastery. And it takes place during the plague and the Black Death. And it's just it's a crazy fiction about a guy growing up in insane circumstances. And there's a lot of like, fights and fornication and all the stuff guys like. So yeah.
All the good stuff. Okay, before we jump to your job at Chili's, what are you reading right now?
Ooh, good question. So I'm reading Fareed Zakaria,
Oh,
Age
geez,
of
okay.
Revolution.
Nice.
It's a really interesting book. I'm about halfway through it. Um, it's really about how technology changes politics. So how technology actually leads to revolution sometimes, or changes how interact with our community and politics. And he goes through all these case studies of like the technological changes that were happening during these big revolutionary periods in England and the Netherlands and France. Pretty interesting.
So it's not just about, say, the internet, but there's probably talking about the printing press as well.
Yeah, he's talking about diff like transformative technologies and how they affect politics throughout the 1600s up to today.
So you're halfway through it and you'd recommend it.
Recommend it. Fareed Zakaria is a great journalist and writer.
Perfect. Okay, so let's come back to your time at Chili's, your first part-time job. What did you learn about yourself? And why did you apply to Chili's, given that there were probably a bunch of other like minimum wage remedial jobs you could have applied to?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a good question. There's, when you're a 16, 17-year-old kid, I was pretty done with high school. So I thought I kind of learned everything I needed to learn in high school. And I wanted some money. And my parents didn't give me any money. So, so had to go find a job. So I thought about retail. I thought about pizza, but what I heard from a friend is you could make the most money, being a waiter, which was true. Um, so I literally printed out a stack of resumes and I just went to a bunch of restaurants and just, I didn't have any waiting experience, so I got turned down a lot of places. But Chili's hired me, and I think having a service job at a young age is just so great, especially for advertising, because I joke to my team, it's like we're basically like well-paid waiters, like we have clients, we're in the service business, we're just instead of slinging margaritas and baby back wings, I'm selling data science and digital campaigns. But are you attentive? Are you service oriented? Do you get the clients what they need? Same, same.
That's a good way of putting it. And so you'd recommend this job or any sort of waiting job to any young
I
person?
Yeah, I think if you I think it teaches you um so many skills about serving clients and customers, which can benefit you in any career that you pursue. Because anyone who's like been worked at a restaurant knows just like it's a brutal the job, you know. People don't tip you, they ask for crazy things, you have
Mhm.
to kind of like negotiate with people. You're running around like crazy. You have to kind of be charming, even though people are being total assholes. Like it's like uh, it's a great training ground for anyone in the service business.
Were you able to naturally deal with the pressure when you started, or was that something you had to build a bit of resilience towards?
No, they start you on like two tables, so you're only serving two tables, and then when you get really great at it, you're serving a whole section. And basically, your economic returns as a waiter is how many tables you can serve well because the more tables you serve and you go through, the more tips you get and the more you take home in cash.
Did you ever go over that line? Like you pushed yourself to the limit and then go over it by chance and go, you know what, maybe I can't do X number of tables on a nightly basis?
Yeah, I dropped a couple trays, over my time.
Gotcha. Well, I don't know, like at any other bar or restaurant, people tend to clap when something smashes off the ground. Do they do that at Chili's as well in Texas?
Yeah, no, I think maybe not. It's just an interesting clientele. Like each restaurant has a different clientele, and I worked at the Chili's in the Galleria Mall, Houston. So you get like families and you get like teenagers, which are the worst clients, and then you get retired couples, and then you get like really grizzled business people. So you kind of got all types. Yeah.
So, what brought you to New York City and specifically Columbia University?
Yes, I think after I spent 18 years in Texas, I got a little bored, and I'd read so many books about the big wide world out there that I decided I had to see some of it. And so I picked the most exciting place I could think of. And I said I would apply to schools in Washington and New York because, every book takes place in an East Coast city. I was kind of interested in politics. I just thought living in a big, major metro city sounded exciting. So I actually applied to just schools in those two cities. So I was just determined to go live in one of those cities. And Columbia was the best school that I got into. Ironically, I didn't get into a bunch of other ones like Georgetown. I just don't know why they accepted me, and then I went. Yeah.
Would you have taken Georgetown if they had accepted you?
Well, I applied early to Georgetown, and they
Mm.
rejected me.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, and then you get into Columbia. So yeah, I don't want to. If anyone's watching this and applying to schools, it's just pick a basket and do your best. You never know.
For school, though, you took a gap year. That's something pretty big in Europe and Australia. That's not something you hear
Mm.
a lot of Americans do. So, first off, let's start with why did you decide to take a gap year?
Yes, it was actually after my first year.
Oh,
So,
okay. So you went into university and then decided to take the gap year. All right.
yeah, so candidly, I got into school and, you've just been in school for 18 years, all you've been doing is studying. You've never really lived any real meaningful lives or had adventures or anything like that. So I found moving to New York extraordinarily hard. That was a big culture shock because, Houston is suburbia. Houston is big spread out too, right? Big houses,
Hmm.
you got a yard, howdy neighbor, that sort of thing. New York is just like spit in your face, like run over your shoe, people don't care.
And New York is
Um,
also, we should say, is bigger than some small countries. Like it's got more people. Like when you rank US cities, the top 10 by population, it's like New York and then second, third, and fourth are like way behind. It's not like they're just a couple 100,000 behind.
yeah, no, I think that's totally right. I mean, you look at the cities that make up these big countries, and there's usually one megalopolis that makes
Yeah.
up that entire country. It's like London, is it for UK? Maybe Toronto,
It
Vancouver
is
for Canada.
it
Yeah,
is Toronto for Canada, but I'm thinking more along the lines I'd put New York City more along the lines of, like you said, London, Paris, and, like, Moscow.
yeah.
Like, those are
Tokyo.
massive
Yeah,
Tokyo as well too. Like, those are the megapolises you're speaking of.
yeah. No, it's a tier one city, and I mean it's so exciting and dynamic. But it's hard. It's hard to live there, and I felt very, it's this irony of there's millions of people walking around you and by you, and you feel totally alone because everyone is completely
Mm,
indifferent. Um,
interesting, okay.
so I was struggling. I was going out a lot. I got into a big, fight on campus. I was getting B's. B's at a Columbia are fine, but I was always a straight A student, so I had a 3.0. I was kind of surfing. I wasn't engaged. So I just told my parents I was leaving school, which totally freaked them out.
Yeah, I could see why,
um,
yeah.
yeah, because I just got into one of the best schools in the world, and then I said I was quitting. So, but luckily, my uh, dad kind of understood, and he directed me to some opportunities where I kind of had an outlet. So he knew this guy called Richard Leakey, he's a famous paleoanthropologist. I think he died a couple years ago, but he discovered the oldest human remains in history, on the border of Kenya and Ethiopia, which is at the furthest extent of the Rift Valley. So Africa is pulling itself apart, and all these fossils are coming to the surface. So he had just opened a field school where people were like digging up bones, and so I got sent there basically. So I lived in Africa for in Lodwar, Kenya. Lived out in an army van for about 5 months, just working on archeological digs, and uh, it was cool. It's just dinosaur bones. You can just pick them up, you know, and clean them, and had that adventure, and then you can't start the school year in December, so then I said, what else could I do? And I kind of wanted to learn Spanish, so I moved to Argentina, and I got a TEFL, which is teaching English as a foreign language. You get a
Mm.
certificate to teach English, as a foreign language teacher, and I became the Citibank's or the English teacher of record for Citibank Argentina. So I eventually found a job in Argentina, and was working at Citibank teaching bankers English. It's a wild adventure. I had a girlfriend, I had a roommate, I had like a whole life in Argentina, and wild adventure. Lived there for a year and had the best time. Learned Spanish, and uh, but finally, kind of came to the realization of why I was in school. I think people need to step away from their normal lives to like understand like their place in the world, or why they should be grateful for the opportunities. Because you grow up and you're just it's middle school, high school, college, then you go into a desk job, and you never take time to think about like why you're doing something. So that was important for me to step away and figure out why the hell I was even studying. And my discovery was, uh, there was a cap of where I could go if I didn't get this degree.
Mm,
Like
okay.
I would just like what I want to be a Citibank Argentina teacher forever, right? And you know, have a couple kids and Argentinian kids and leave. That's what my mom's biggest fear was. She was like, I was gonna marry this girl down there and never come back. But yeah, but I did. I came back, and and then I came back to Columbia, and I finished my degree, and the rest is history.
Can we pick a couple things apart there? I got some questions.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned that it was an adventure. When you go from, say, having all of this land at your disposal outside of Houston to, I imagine you were packed tightly in a dorm in New York and then living out of a van in Kenya, an army van. Did you have to convince yourself it was an adventure, or were there a couple of, like, very early sleepless nights where you were just saying, "Excuse my language, what the fuck am I doing?"
Yeah, I think when I got to Kenya, I remember you fly into Nairobi, and Nairobi is, I think, a case study in income inequality and what we don't want to become in
Mhm.
America. Because you have people living in this neighborhood called Karen Blixen, which is just super ritzy and, beautiful jungle apartments and all this stuff. And then it's gated, and then you have like armed guards everywhere around this neighborhood, and you leave, and it's just urban slums, and people are just living in mud. And it's just like it's insane. Um, I've never seen people live like that. And then you fly into this desert desert town called Lodwar, and Lodwar is, if people should just look it up on a map. I mean, there's nothing there. It's like 10 huts put together with like chicken wire and, metal. And it's just it was so eye-opening, like, wow, like I'm so lucky, you know, where I am because people I remember getting off the plane and a guy was my age who was missing a leg, and he
Mm.
I couldn't even look at him because it was so shocking. So,
There's
yeah.
probably a very hairy story behind how he lost that leg as well too.
Dude, I saw child soldiers, like, I saw dead people, like, it was crazy, dude. Yeah.
That's one of
But,
the
I mean, it
interesting
was
things about going
yeah.
out and traveling like that is because sure you learn that there's some countries and some places that do it better than home, but you really do develop an appreciation from where you come from when you see
Yep.
how just how primitive some places could be. And I'm not knocking Kenya. I've done my share of travels
Yeah.
too, but I can't believe what I've seen too.
But it's also goes the other way. Sometimes you go to countries and you're like, "Wow, this is awesome. Why don't we do that?" You know? Like,
I
why don't
completely
we use
agree.
the metric system? You know? It's so stupid, you know? Anyway, that's another conversation.
Well, then you go to Britain and they measure everything in miles per hour, but then everything else is measured in meters and you name it. So when I was living
Mm,
there, I was kind of like, wait, why are your highways or speed measured this way and everything else? But okay, so one other thing I wanted to ask you too about that gap year. You came back to Colombia, but was there ever a point where you said to yourself, I left Colombia for a reason. I wasn't having a great time. Maybe just maybe I want to take a stab at a different university.
no, Columbia is not fun, I would say. If you wanna have fun, you should go to a state school and go to football games. Like, Columbia, I mean, they wrote an op-ed every year in The Spectator about how we should defund the football team and how sports are stupid. Like, that's the vibe of Columbia. Like like, um, it's the protest school too. I mean, you saw the Gazan protests when
Yep.
I was there. They were doing the Me Too protests, and that was the birth of the Me Too movement. People don't understand that Columbia has a great long history of being, like, the place where these cultural movements start in America. And so I was, it's not fun, but it is, you're in a place with the future world leaders of all these different industries. Like, I thought I was terrible at math, you know, going to Columbia. I was in calculus. I remember this girl started crying in our midterm, like literally sobbing. And the teacher just escorted her out and was like, please continue. Like it was just like hardcore. But then I got into, an agency. Turns out I'm a math god, in the regular world. Um, because I'm literally doing math with like astrophysicists, So yeah, so I suck. It's like all context. I suck in that context, but you take me to, a media planning thing. It's like simple, right?
Okay, so after graduation, you moved to it's William Morris Endeavor IMG, and this is
Hmm.
your first kind of your breakthrough into the media and marketing world, and you're an office assistant. So I want to understand though, as an office
Yeah.
assistant, what did you glean from that? Like what did your day to day entail? Because it seems like it's the type of job where you have a lot of remedial duties, but you have the opportunity to be in the room with power and observe power in action.
Yes. So, and also how people wield it, which is interesting. I think when I graduated, I just wanted to do something fun. I said, I don't want to work at a bank. What do I want to do? What would be fun? So I thought working in media and entertainment sounds fun, right? That was the whole.
That was it. It was just about how can I have fun? I wanna make sure when I get up, I have fun, and I go to bed saying, I spent my day
Yeah,
having fun.
yeah. I just didn't want to be like an accountant bang my head against the wall, for 40 years. Like that just didn't appeal to me. So, yeah, I went to William Morris and I was in the mailroom. That's where you start. And everyone told me if you want to get into media and entertainment, you got to start at a talent agency. So, um, immediately I knew I was in the wrong place. Um, did not enjoy it. I got paid $10 an hour back then. So I was making teenage babysitter wages in living in New York. I think my total take home pay was like 24 grand a year, in New York City.
That's not enough to get by New York, unless you've got 4 other
No,
roommates.
no. And I was working bar at night. So it was insane. So I was working at a bar near my house. So I would come back from William Morris after stealing bagels from conference rooms because I couldn't feed myself. And
Jeez.
then going to the bar and then working bar until like 2 or 3 in the morning. And then I would wake up and go back to the office. And they kept wear a suit, and I just didn't like agents that much. Um, so as quickly as I could, I was looking for another job, and that's how I found Dentsu. Yeah.
Okay,
And
so
that's kind of the transition from entertainment to advertising.
and then you
Yeah.
get into advertising, but you get into a very specific form of advertising, a specific facet. You're in, can we say branded content, product placement, in that sort
Mhm.
of realm. Was that what you were jonesing for, or did you just find that first opportunity to get into advertising and that's what landed on your lap?
Yeah, I joined actually Kara, which is still a great media buying and planning firm that's owned by Dentsu. And I got put on a new account that they had just won called Mondelez because everyone doesn't know how these work. You win a big account, and then you just have to staff it with all these like kids out of college basically to do all this media buying and planning. And then I got on that account, and because I had worked at William Morris, they had a line item for branded content as part of that account, which is part of which is was an agency called Story Lab back then, and is now called Cara Content. But it was basically using media dollars to do branded entertainment. So create like TV shows with Vice, or I worked on Sour Patch Kids music videos. I did like 30 music videos that I like copyrighted and organized with like Sour Patch Kids and Billboard.
Nice.
S- yeah, I got to meet a bunch of different cool artists, before they kept it big because it was all about like up and coming artists, and Sour Patch Kids would sponsor their music videos in exchange for very prominently branded Sour Patch Kids in the background.
You were also working on the
And
Oreo brand
yeah,
as well too. Like that's got to be Mondelez's hero brand.
Oreo is like, yeah, that's their monster brand. That and Ritz crackers, and I
Mm,
would say Sour Patch Kids are probably the biggest brands under that portfolio. Although they got Wheat Thins, which are great. Um, and I had to work on Belvita a little bit, and may I say, terrible. Belvita, it's a terrible product. No shade, but I don't work in CPG anymore, so I can just speak my mind. Yeah,
Well, thank you for your candor on that
yeah,
topic. I was just about to say
yeah.
this is turning into like the junk food people podcast.
That's what I did. I sold
This-
junk food
You
for
did.
3 years, which was cool. And
Did you
then
happen to be at the agency when it was when I think the Super Bowl was in New Orleans and the power went out. And something that got a lot of
yeah.
traction was Oreo put up a tweet and it was like a photo and it said still good in the dark. And they were like
No, you
dipping
can
the Oreo.
dunk. You can
It-
still dunk in the dark.
Still
That's what it
dunk in the
was.
dark. That's what it was. Was your team part of that?
No, that was another agency, 360i, which I think is Dentsu Creative now, but that was just like a great, really smart play,
That was a nice
by that
reaction.
agency.
Very
Yeah.
timely. Okay, so after that, you leave and you go to the Branded Entertainment Network. What
Now
brought you
Ben
that?
Labs. Yeah.
Now, Ben Labs. So, did you find the role? Did the role find you?
Yeah. You've worked in a media agency, right, Victor?
Never worked with a ton of them. I have literally been sales side my entire life. I've always been in
Okay.
media, but I'm familiar with a lot. Like when you drop Storylab, all of these names I know I'm familiar with. They've all got offices up here in Canada.
Hmm. Yeah, so I actually met one of my sales vendors, worked at Ben. His name was Len. Shout out Len, wherever you are. And I saw a job posting and I just wanted to get out of Dentsu at that point. And because I was just like, you wasn't getting promoted fast enough. I was like, where else can I go? And I Len actually introduced me to the hiring manager, a woman named Karen Kem. Shout out Karen Kem, best boss ever. And she interviewed me and then hired me and said I have to move out to LA to take the job. So I moved out to LA and started selling product placements and influencer marketing and IP licensing. But I was on the marketing strategy side. So what I was doing is I was creating the B2B marketing campaigns for the company to arm the sales team to go out and, close business.
Yeah. So the move to Los Angeles, was that always in the job description? Because you made it sound like they kind of sprung it on you as you were learning. Okay. So they sprung that
Yeah,
on
I
you,
knew it was I
but you knew it
no, I
was
knew
LA.
it was in LA.
Okay.
I said, "Can I stay in New York?" They were like, "No, it's the HQ's in LA." And I was kind of a New York hater, as most of us are, moving to LA. And I was like, "New York's the best. LA sucks." Blah 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 blah. But then when I got to LA, I went on a hike and I had a burrito, and I was like, "This is pretty nice." It's like,
That's all it took
yeah,
was a hike and a burrito, and you were sold.
yeah,
It,
yeah, and then no winter and just sunshine, and 75 degrees and sunny every day. I was like, "Yeah, this is nice."
Was that not pretty much the way it was in Houston as well? I know that every once in a while you guys get like your bout of snow, but you probably
No,
get as much snow in 1 year than we get more snow probably in a week than you guys get in years, I'd say.
no, Houston is slightly cool. It's 40, uh, what's the right word? It's like 10 to 15 degrees Celsius, 40 to 50 Fahrenheit. But in the summer, it's boiling hot, boiling hot. It's a swamp that's been paved. So
Gotcha.
it's
Okay.
it's like 100 degrees, like 40 degrees Celsius and humid. It's horrible. In LA, it's like this the whole time. Yeah.
What was the work culture like, or what were the differences like between, say, New York and LA? And I want to throw it out there that a couple episodes back, I had Courtney Hirsch, the CEO of John Boy Media, and she was comparing her time in San Francisco versus New York, where she's
Mm.
based now. And she spent most of her career, and she found that it was really slow on the West Coast and a little too slow for her.
Yeah, it's definitely a pace change. I think New York are New Yorkers are in a rush all of the time, even when they're stationary. So I think LA people can like be a little too lackadaisical might be the right word. Also flaky. People don't commit to things in LA. They're
Okay.
like they're just like, "Oh yeah, could sounds kind of cool. Maybe I'll come." And New Yorkers are like, "I'll be there. It's like 7:15 on the dot." Like, you know. So it's definitely a cultural shift. I think generally how the media and advertising industry are split in the United States. New York is the home of kind of corporate media. It's like the advertising agencies, it's the lawyers, it's the advertising parts, it's the um public affairs, journalism, all that stuff. And then LA is more the creative parts. So it's more video game studios, movie studios, TV production people, um, creative agencies, trailer houses. That's generally, you know, I'm painting with a broad brush here, but that's generally the split I find.
Did you know that going into your move to LA? Like, obviously, you knew that that was a very big production hub, but you were painting it with broad strokes, but still, you were getting into a little bit more detail than I expected, but did you know that going into it, or when you got there, did you realize that this was even better than you thought?
No, I think I knew I could do the job I was getting hired to do. Well, they also gave me a lot more money, so that was helpful.
That's an easy thing to respond to.
Yeah. So, but I think the reason Ben was located HQ in LA is because all the creators live out here. Like all the influencers, like there's a ton of big influencer creator community out here. All the productions. So when we were doing product placements, the sets, getting things to set is like here, maybe Atlanta now. Actually, a lot in Canada because of the tax credits now.
Mm.
Um,
Hopefully those
but
hold true, though.
yeah, but there was a it was just a different part of the media and advertising industry that I hadn't experienced yet because I was doing like very corporate advertising um, at Dentsu prior and William Morris as well. You know, it was just all like booking and the CFO was there, but all the talent people were out here.
So you get a thrill being on set then. Like when you close something or your team closes something, you want to be on set to see the magic happen.
So no, we actually don't. I don't like going on set at all.
Really?
It's yeah, it's huge long days. I mean, it's exciting and fun. But
Like, you don't have to
really,
be there the whole day. You can just kinda, like, pop in because everyone like, at that point, it's a machine that's taking care of itself, and you're not going in and directing and telling them what to do with the lighting and costumes. But you don't like
no.
dropping in just seeing the magic happen. Because when I did branded content sales off and on at different publishers, I really liked just being a fly on the wall for an hour here and there when it was happening.
Yeah, I think it's fun. I mean, I did it more in Dentsu and Ben. I think Creative Company we're selling. You know, we're a marketer's marketer, so we're doing the B2B marketing for the studio. We're not doing the production, right? We're doing
Gotcha.
the B2B marketing like for an agency. We're doing the B2B marketing for a video game company. So we're not really on set in my current capacity. I think when I was in my 20s and I was doing music videos for Sour Patch Kids, yeah, I want to meet the chain smokers 100%. But now it's kind of like been there, done that sort of thing, which is maybe uh, a bit pretentious to say, but it's still fun every once in a while. But dude, set work is a ton of work, man. I mean, producers I have so much respect for because I mean, they're up 5 in the morning till midnight. It's like, it's crazy. Yeah.
A lot of things have to go right for them in order to make the most of the limited time that they have. I completely concur.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's bring things full circle to Creative Company. You've already touched on how it started a little bit at the beginning of the episode, but let's go right to that point where you're let go during the pandemic.
Hmm.
Is this your first time being laid off from a job?
Yeah.
How did you feel?
I didn't really care, to be honest.
Did you
Because I
see it
wanted to,
coming?
yeah, kind of. And
Because during the
I,
pandemic, a lot of people kind of saw like if things started to slow down, they knew they were on borrowed time. It's a horrible
well,
thing to say, but we all saw it.
yeah. Yeah. And I think I was looking to leave anyway because I'm the sort of person where I'm not really motivated by money. I mean, to an extent, but I think I'm more about like what am I learning here? You know?
It's a good
Um,
point. Yeah.
and by year four, I had done the same B2B, you know, advertising week, South by Southwest, Cannes, you know, all the major tent poles. I had done partnerships with Ad Age and Adweek and the Drum, and I'd done that 4 times over. So it was kind of like I'm ready for something new anyway. So I got let go, and LA sucked at that time because you couldn't do anything. Um, and I packed up my stuff and I moved to the Dominican Republic for COVID.
Okay,
So,
so
yeah,
we know why you left California, and you know what, I can relate to that because Canada was the same way too. But why the Dominican Republic? Because we're talking about all the places you've been, and that doesn't seem like it was anywhere you had been prior to that.
yeah, it wasn't noble. There was just a cute girl who invited me down. So,
That's it.
yeah, and that was it. So I moved down there, and we did not work out at all. But the town, I won't say the name because I don't want I want to keep it a secret. But the town I was in Dominican Republic was just awesome. I mean, I was surfing every day. I picked up surfing. You would just drink pina coladas on the beach, just really great people, really cool Rasta, hippie vibes. And I just lived in swim trunks for 9 months and I surfed every day. Um, and it was just, I know a lot of people had trouble during COVID, but COVID was like one of the best times of my life because I just got so much time to like do introspection and pick up a hobby that surfing, which is just a huge part of my life now. Um, and it really changed my life from like, it gave me new perspective on what I wanted to do. And so COVID was just a blessing for me because it shifted my whole mindset about what I wanted to do next.
I think I know the answer to this already, but what were the restrictions like in the Dominican Republic during the pandemic?
12 p.m. midnight curfew. You had to be back at your house. That's about it. Yeah.
That just a midnight curfew and that's it.
Yeah, that people broke all the time. I mean, you go to a country like that and I've traveled enough that if police pulls you over, you just you just grease them a little bit and you just go home. Yeah. So,
That's it. Oh,
yeah.
wow. Okay. So you felt that maybe your time in Kenya set you up for success in the Dominican, or at least just to handle what the culture was like there?
I think when you travel, your spectrum of experiences arm you with tools to handle stuff in the future.
Well put. All right.
Yeah.
And so when do you make the decision to come back and start Creative Company?
Yeah, so I was a writer for Bonnier Corp. So I thought, I was like, hey, you know what? I really want to be a journalist and I want to I just want to write. Because, I was writing for Sour Patch Kids. I was writing press releases and all this stuff. So I thought I would do some writing and I was writing like travel. Basically, no one could get there because of the COVID. And I could I could supply all these travel magazines with like stories from the Caribbean because I was already
Mm,
down there. So I wrote really cool about my surf instructor, about this like really cool surf school, um, about the sailing school that was teaching like local kids how to sail and like pulling them out of poverty. So it was all these like really amazing stories around the Caribbean, but I would get paid like $400 per story. And I remember my old colleague at Ben had moved to IPG, um, RIP, now Omnicom, I guess. Uh, but he said, hey, can you write me a research paper for product placement? And I was like, well, how much are you going to give me? And he's like, $5,000. And then,
cha-ching.
and I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll just go back to corporate stuff. that was the, it was just kind of a, economic animal decision of, you know, journalism is so important, but it's just being commoditized. I actually just posted on LinkedIn about this, and now it just went a little viral, and everyone's freaking out. But I said, yeah, there's parts of the industry that are just dying, and you can't make a money just being a writer like you used to. So we need to figure that out. That's a whole another topic of discussion, but I just saw the writing on the wall that unless you're the super tippy top echelon of journalists, these people make pennies.
Yeah, like
So
A Matt Taibbi comes
yeah,
to mind. Someone like that.
yeah, or like your Fareed Zakaria and stuff,
Fareed
who's like
Zakari is another one too. Yep.
a news anchor, an Anderson Cooper. But your block and tackle writers at all these magazines, they're all getting laid off right now. It's a really scary time. To be like an editorial. And now these AI models are just sucking up your work and regurgitating them. So yeah, so I got into corporate and we started a company for media and advertising, doing B2B marketing. Just kept collecting clients, have this really amazing, innovative swath of across video games, production studios, MarTech, media tech, and we just help them tell their stories and win more brand clients. Met my co-founder, and it's just been this gradual cool build to do data science, and I think using large language models and AI to actually summarize what real people are saying about brands, IPs, topics, campaigns is going to be transformative. So I bet the company on that. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the company. So one question I did want to ask, we're going to take a step back. When you were looking to found the company and you were working on, I guess we could sort of say it sort of started with that $5,000 contract. You'd
It
mentioned
did.
that you had mentioned that you had left California because of the lockdown. When you were thinking about starting the company, did you think about going anywhere else in the United States where there weren't those kind of restrictions? Because we're still doing this during the pandemic.
Yeah, we're still doing this during the pandemic. I think I was in Belize in that time with a friend of mine, and we were just living in Belize, which is like a country on the Yucatan Peninsula. Um, but no, I think once the restrictions left, I knew I was going to come back to California. I just thought the government response was a little heavy-handed. So once the restrictions kind of left, I mean, if you work in media and advertising, you might as well go where the focal points are, right? And
You have to, yeah.
that's still LA and New York in the United States. So pick one, you know.
So what does the company look like now compared to we've already got a good picture of what day one looked like.
Yeah, day one was just me. Um just doing like writing on behalf of my clients and then doing their B2B marketing. Now it's a team of 20 people, which is pretty wild. 4 years later. We basically have three divisions. So one's like a creative and digital division where we're doing brands, we're doing websites, we're doing um, really cool developmental products, custom technology. One is PR and partnerships. So where we allocate people's sponsorship budgets, we help get them press and media and trades, you know, your typical, your drums, your media posts, your ad weeks, your ad ages, fast companies. Um, and then the third is a data science where we build large language models to sort consumer data on behalf of our clients. And that could be, we don't really get into the execution part of advertising. I think we're more in the planning. So how do you plan a campaign and then how do you report on a campaign after it's done? Philosophically, I think the generative AI products that are replacing execution work in the media and advertising is not a place I want to be, because I just always loved copywriting and doing the creative myself and the writing. Um, and so what we're focused on are insights and AI products are focused on the planning of a campaign and then the reporting on the campaign.
Wes, if anyone listening or watching this wants to get in touch to learn more about Creative Company, what's the best way to do?
The best way is to go to creative with no E at the end,
No
C
E at the
R
end.
E A, yeah,
All right.
CREATIV.com. And we have a weekly newsletter that I write. If you subscribe to it, it comes straight to my inbox and we can chat.
Okay, so I've got the URL at the bottom. Everyone jump on that and they can subscribe to the newsletter, I assume, on the site as well, right?
On the site, it's our Substack.
Ah, okay, it's a
So
Substack. All
yeah,
right. Okay, so let's
yeah,
bring this home. You ready for rapid fire questions?
hit me.
The campaign you're most proud of.
It's probably the Sour Patch Kids campaign I talked about. Yeah. It's yeah, just meeting all these cool artists um and making music videos is just fun.
Your favorite movie.
Um what did I say? Uh yeah, adventure movies. I think Gladiator was one of them, but Kingdom of Heaven, uh The Godfather, any big adventure film I love.
What'd you think of this, the Gladiator sequel?
It was like fun, you know. Sequels, they're always going to be worse than the original. Yeah.
I find if they're drawn out, like, say, over 2 decades, more than 2 decades, then yeah, to me, it felt unnecessary. And I'm a
It's
Denzel
definitely
Washington fan.
I would say I was entertained. Did I think it was the bee's knees? No. The original Gladiator, Russell Crowe, all the way.
If Hollywood were to make a movie based on your life story, who would you want to play you?
Uh, I think Jake Gyllenhaal probably. Yeah, because he's a little unhinged, but he seems pretty thoughtful.
If Hollywood were to make this movie based on your life story, what would you call it?
Probably a lost young man, something like that. Yeah, restless, a restless young man.
Your favorite book?
I'm gonna go with Narcissus and Goldman by Hermann Hesse.
Your favorite song?
Three Little Birds by Bob Marley and the Wailers.
The best advice you have ever received?
I think it was probably from my dad to know yourself, which is fun. I also went to Greece 2 years ago, and it's written on the Temple of Apollo, the Oracle of Delphi, and the words are "Ignothi Sefton," which is self-knowledge. So that's ancient wisdom.
If you could go back in time and give your younger self advice, what would you say?
Same thing, man. Get to know yourself. Uh, Not everyone's gonna like you, but you're gonna like yourself if you know who you truly are.
And my signature closing question, if you weren't media and marketing, what would you be doing and why?
Oh, I'd go back to writing. I'd just be a writer on an island.
And we're going to end things right here. Wes, thanks so much for taking time out of your day today.
Thanks, Victor, for having me. It was super fun.